And welcome to another episode of 50 Shades and Grey. Now, on 50 Shades and Grey, we talk a lot about relationships, but sometimes there is a case where you want a child outside of a relationship. So I've got someone that I'm going to talk to about solo parenting today who's a long way away from me, but feels very close. Good evening or good morning, as it was, Zara. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Yeah, good morning from very sunny Brisbane here in Australia.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on because obviously, having a child outside of a relationship could be an option to many women, I would say. So, can you tell us how your journey started? What was your situation?
Yeah, I think I had actually gone back and forth a lot on whether or not children was something I actually wanted. All through my 20s, it was probably a hard no. I was very career orientated. It was all about my career and success and status and the car I drove and all of that materialistic crap. um, and it wasn't until I kind of got into my mid 30s, friends were having children. And yeah, I started to think, oh, hold on, maybe this is something that I want. And I was not in a relationship. I wasn't really having much success in the dating scene. And so I thought, well, what other option is there really? And then really strangely, I watched a documentary about, single mothers by choice and what that entails. And I started to research that, which is essentially using a donor to become pregnant. There's some different ways this can happen. Some I was very uncomfortable with. There's women who go on Facebook and there are groups where men offer their, seed. But I chose the, regulated, IVF slash, fertility clinic route where
Yeah.
everything like above board and there's documents signed and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I just went for a consultation. And the first thing they'll do as a woman in your mid 30s is say, we need to make sure this is something you can actually do. And once that was all okay, yeah, I picked a donor and off we went.
So, when you was approaching 30s? Because I always feel like sort of mid to late 30s would be an ideal time. Everything being right to have children because you're still really, really young at 30. I feel now, and that's probably because I'm older now, looking back. But I never realised how young I actually was when I was 30. But do you think there's a real big pressure on women to have sort of children, have babies before 30? Did you feel that pressure?
No, I didn't feel that pressure at all. I think the problem that women have is our bodies are not designed to have children this late. And so it's a biological pressure more so than anything else. And I fully agree with you. I remember Sarah is a good example. She had Teddy at, I think she was 29 when she fell pregnant with Teddy. And then I remember coming and visiting her and literally sat there and I was like, where's the adult? They just
Look,
this kid, like, what do you like? They just handed it to you and like you could leave with it. Like, what? What? You're like, no, we need an adult. I was like, call your mom, like, get your mom over. Like, we can't. What are we gonna do? Like, what if something happened? And that was honestly, I joke, but that was a very real, like, so we're just left alone with this child. Like, this is a bit scary. Now, granted, Sarah knew what she was doing, thank God. But, I think I was like, what the? And in my head, I was like, I couldn't do it. Like, I can't do this. Like, I'm way too young. I'm way too stupid. So I think from a being ready point of view, I would not change for anything the age I was when I had Mia, which was 38, nearly 39, because I was more mature. I could take things in my stride quicker, easier. I was digesting information better. Like, I was more settled. Obviously, financially, I was in a better place. But biologically, it took me 3.5 years to have Mia, because biologically, my body was on the other side of
So did
child.
you start when you was 35 trying to have Mia and
Yeah.
then finally came at 38?
Yeah. Yeah. So I had, and bear in mind, all my tests, they came back and they were like, you're great. You've got loads of eggs in reserve. You're healthy. All my tests came back fine. You're brilliant. This should be a piece of cake. Like, no dramas. We did 3 IUIs, which is basically like a medical turkey baster. They didn't work. So we moved on to IVF, and I did 2 full rounds of IVF. From the first round, I transferred 5 embryos, which I was very lucky to get 5, that many embryos. I failed 3, and 2 resulted in a miscarriage or miscarriages. And then we did a second round of IVF, and it was just before that round of IVF, there was this new test. Basically, what it was testing, which is insane to me, that you can get pregnant for about 12 hours, as in the implantation is about a 12-hour window, and then your body moves on. And so they were trying to work out whether my window was normal. And so they did this test, and it turns out it's not normal. So they were actually putting the embryo in 1 day too late. So
Right.
we switched it, did it a day earlier, and she's currently singing in the bedroom. So yeah, it took a long time. And as a solo parent, I'm also not going to lie, it was a lot of money. It was a lot of.
I was going to say, but what, as well as the expense of it, the financial implications, what was that emotional journey like as well? Because that must be awful finding out it hasn't worked. And was it hard getting the energy to go again?
The first probably 2 or 3, no, because I was so determined, like this is going to happen. And my fertility doctor kept saying, there's no medical reason this isn't happening that they could see. So you're quite determined. And obviously the failures, it's hard, but you kind of go, it's okay. I have another embryo. Like, we're okay. We're
Yeah.
okay. The miscarriages, I think, were the ones that destroyed me, because they went back to back. So I finally fell pregnant, finally got a positive pregnancy test. And they rang and they said, this is your HCG levels, which is basically your pregnancy hormone level, and it's a little bit low. We'd like to see a bit higher, but we'll do it again in 2 weeks, 2 days, no drama. And then when they redid it, it actually gone down. And so they said, look, we don't think this is a viable pregnancy. And so that was just soul destroying, because in your head, you're like, I just need the positive pregnancy test, and everything else takes care of itself. And that isn't the case at all. And then the second one was a bit later on. I was actually a bit further along in that pregnancy. Well, a lot further along. So that was even worse, because everything looked perfect.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately. But, the path to great things is not an easy one, ever. I mean, no one's like, I just woke up and got everything I ever wanted and it was a piss. Like, everyone has to struggle in some way, and this was mine.
So do you think that, obviously because couples go through this as well, do you think it's easier going through it on your own, or do you think it would have been harder actually going through that same process with someone else who was out of the situation? So like a man, for instance, would probably keep saying, well, what do you think it is?
Yeah.
So do you think that was easier doing that bit solo, or do you think the support of a partner would have been helpful?
It's really funny. I've often thought about this, because I have known friends who've unfortunately gone through similar with partners, so in partnerships, and they often say to me that it's until the baby is there, it's really hard for the partner to understand what's going on, because everything's happening in your body and it's the emotions and the hormones and all that. It's in your body. And then the physical act of that, the physical act of a miscarriage as well is, again, you're not going to share that with anyone, as in you're not going to show them what's happening type of thing. So I think no matter whether you're in a partnership or not, I think that is a very, very lonely experience. I think you could have the world's most understanding, brilliant, wonderful partner. I just don't think there's a world where that couldn't be an incredibly lonely and insular thing that happens to a woman, because there's no way a man can understand what that feels like. Would it have been nice to have the support of someone to get me a cup of tea, or, give me a cuddle, or, do small things like that? Yeah, I think that would have been lovely. I was very lucky that my brother was really supportive through that with me, but we didn't, it's not like we lived together, but he was very caring and supportive. But I think that side of it would have been lovely, to have that emotional support and someone, I know it sounds crazy, but someone to make you a cup of tea and a slice of toast, just that would have been nice. But I don't think it's ever not completely lonely.
So what were your biggest fears before, obviously, you had me? What were your biggest fears about the whole process of not just are you able to get pregnant, but say, right, I'm pregnant. What was you then like, crap, I'm pregnant?
Yeah. Well, when I got pregnant with Mia, I actually had, just because I hadn't had enough go wrong, I actually had some pretty intense moments where I was pretty convinced it wasn't going to, this was all going to end again. So I had probably 7 or 8 bouts of bleeding, basically, which I don't know. Yeah. You get pregnant, it's like, if you see blood, it's not a good sign. And then you get pregnant and there's blood and people are like, it's not always bad. It's like, pick a side, guys.
Is it good or bad?
Pick a lane, people. Am I panicking or am I not? And so I spent a good long time in the hospital, in and out at the early pregnancy unit, only for everything to be fine. So I think it wasn't until, it was around week 20. And I remember I went in for the first proper anatomy scan, where they go, basically, if you're going to find something bad, you're probably going to find it in that 20-week scan. And everything was fine. And I remember coming out and being like, oh, right. Okay. This is happening now. And I remember the lady saying, only in 4 weeks, she'll be a viable baby. In 4 weeks, the likelihood of survival, if she comes early, skyrockets at 24, 25 weeks. And I was like, oh my God, imagine if she was here in 4 weeks. I'm not ready. And so, yeah, you definitely go through that. What do I do now? I was very lucky though. My clinic, it specializes in LGBTIQI families. And so they have really good support systems, because my biggest fear was, how do I explain to Mia why I did this? Because I did feel, once I got pregnant, I started to get feelings of being selfish, because I'm very close to my dad. My dad's my bestie, very, very close. My brother is very close to my dad. I'm very close to my brother. And I thought, I started getting really guilty that I had cheated her out of that relationship. And that's such a definitive relationship in my life. And so it's transformed my life in many different ways. My dad's my, business coach. He's my mentor. He's someone I look up to, all those sorts of things. And I started to feel very, very guilty. And I had to work through that. And I was very lucky. My clinic had a lot of support for that, because I'm not, number one, they have a number of solo parents, but also they have a lot of same sex. So where there's a whole gender missing out of the equation as well. So I was really lucky, and I got to work through that with a counselor, and she was really helpful in helping to reframe that in my mind.
So when have you missed a partner in the process of it?
Taking the bins out. Like,
More to do with Mia, really, than general housework.
my
Oh, you've named. You know what? You could get a butler. You'd be really happy. You've named
like, God.
tea and toast and taking the bins out.
You know, I watched Downton Abbey yesterday at the cinema and I was like, I do need a butler.
That's what I need. I don't need a partner. I need a butler.
That's what it is. Look, there's so many decisions in parenting that you have to make. And, you know, especially when they're little, it would have been lovely to be able to share that with someone and to share that load. Is this the right decision? Is this the right place? Is this the right daycare? Am I making the right decision here? All of those sorts of things. So Mia, she has a genetic deletion, which has caused delays, developmental delays, and they call them global developmental delays. But a lot of them they present themselves as autistic traits. And so she needs a lot more help with things, and she's further back than other kids at her age. And so I think the emotional part of that would have been really great, just to have somebody to lean on and share some of that. Or what do you think we should do? And what should I do here, or what should we do here? That would have been nice. But then I do think there's also the flip side, which is I am decisive and I make the decisions. And I don't have to do the debates, clear on the plan. I don't have to, try and get someone on board with that plan. So I really only answer to myself. But then you get to the point where you just want someone to validate and support. So that's probably the biggest thing outside of bins and tea and toast. That's probably the biggest thing.
I would agree with you, and you're probably not at that stage yet, but you'll get there. That I found with single parenting, it was a lot easier generally. I found because I could just do what I wanted to do. If I changed the plan, no one knew, so it didn't matter. I think the times when I found it most difficult was when if I'd told Zach off, felt really guilty. But I think if you've got a partner in that, it's like, well, they were wrong, weren't they? And you've got a team against the one. But ultimately as single parents, I think what you do is you tell your kids off, then you get an overwhelming guilt about telling your kids off because you oh God, they hate me now. And then you try and make up for it after that. And that's and when you know you're right as well, you think, no, I should have told them off. It's really hard to stay sort of fixed on your opinion without bending to them, because thinking, well, it's just 1v1. If it was 2v1, this would be a lot easier.
Yeah, play good cop, bad cop. Yeah.
So has Mia got to the stage where she's noticed that maybe you haven't got a partner, or she hasn't got a second person to go to?
I think so. I think they really recognize that stuff until a bit later. And obviously Mia's a little bit delayed, albeit there are kids in her class who've asked me, does Mia have one mummy or two mummies? Because they're obviously learning about different types of family structures. And so they'll say, like, does Mia have one mummy or two mummies? Does Mia have one daddy or two daddies? And so they're quite curious. Mia doesn't. She doesn't really register it. And one thing I have been, and I had to really course correct myself on this, is I'm very much Mia's safe space. And I had to make sure that that wasn't the case and that she had other safe spaces in people as well. And so, we've been working really hard to make sure, like, my parents, she's very comfortable with my parents, my brother and his wife, she's comfortable there with them, so that she has multiple people. And so she's not missing out on that secondary person, because actually she's got 4 other people that she's as comfortable with as she is with me.
So when have there been times when you actually haven't missed a partner and thought, I'm glad I'm just doing this on my own, because this would be a pain in the arse otherwise?
To be honest, I don't really miss a partner apart from the bins and gardening. I hate gardening.
Still a butler.
A butler and a gardener. I really haven't, but I'm probably an anomaly as well. I've never really been a very codependent person. I'm probably independent to a fault. It's probably why I'm single, if I'm very honest with you. Like, I'm not someone who needs the validation of another person in order to feel like I'm complete. And oftentimes when I have had someone in my life, the reason that hasn't progressed is because I couldn't find, like, I really struggled to sort of bend to allow them in, if that makes any sense. So, I know a lot of my friends, and I mean codependent in a positive way, not in a negative way, but I know a number of my friends are very that way. They've always had partners or boyfriends, got married when you're supposed to get married. That just wasn't my thing. So I say this with like all the love in the world for that. It's very, very rare that I wake up and think, oh, I wish I had someone to be a part of this with. And I think that's helped a lot. I think if you're someone who's still yearning for that, then probably solo parenting, just be more prepared. I think it would be a lot more difficult if you're someone who is kind of, oh, I wish I had someone. I wish there was someone else in my life. I think it would be a lot more difficult if that was how you were entering the process.
So you strike me as quite a strategically thought out person to sort of plan everything, like, how it was going to go. Was there anything that like really surprised you, that you was like, well, I wasn't expecting that? Like, was there anything that sort of came out, you were like,
a fundamentally different person to the person that walked into the process? So I walked in, and I think, if I'm very honest, I saw having a child as the final piece in my success puzzle. I had the cool car, I had the money, I sat in the nice seats on the plane, I wore the Rolex watch. That was all the things I aspired to. And in my head, it was like, and I'll have the child, and life's gonna, and then click, I've got it all done.
in the Burberry mat.
In the Burberry Mac, exactly. I do love my Burberry Mac though, but that's ridiculous. Paying $5,000 for a fucking Mac, ridiculous. I look back sometimes and I'm like, what is wrong with you, Zara?
I didn't know you had a Burberry Mac. I've just had visions of.
This is how wanky I was. It says Burberry like this across the side of it, like, mate. So that's how I walked into this process. And then I think all the knocks to get to being pregnant, each one chipped away at that. Why have I why has that been more important than what I'm doing now? Why have I spent so much time and energy chasing nothing, really nothing, like material crap? This is so much bigger than that and so much more important. And then once Mia was born, I felt like I shed that skin and things got peaceful. My sense of self fell into place. My sense of calm fell into place. The chase and the drive to be this super successful, person disappeared. And every day that I wasn't spending with Mia needed to mean something. And I think my tolerance for bullshit disappeared almost totally. And a lot of things changed. And just so many things. My body image changed. I've struggled with my body image my whole life. Oh my God, I look fat in that. I look this and that. I look that and that. I don't care. Could not care less. As long as I'm healthy for Mia, that's all I care about now. And now I feel like I'm a kinder person. I'm a nicer person. And I'm just happy every single day just to hang out with Mia and my dog, my old lady dog, my family. And that's what's important. And that's how I make decisions now as well. Is it the right thing for my family?
So if there's someone out there now that's sort of watching this and thinking, I'm going to go through this process, and I'm going to do this, what advice that they may not know about? Because I imagine people research a lot into this. But is there anything that you would say, you won't find this out, but there's one thing that I would tell you to be prepared for or to do?
Yeah, so I think there's probably two things. One is even if you're in your kind of late 20s or mid 20s and you think that family may be on the cards, the first thing I'd say is go and get the fertility checks. It shouldn't cost you anything. What those do is they're going to give you a baseline of where you're at, and it will give you that peace of mind. So start there, because I think the more information you have, the better armed you are with how you make your choices moving forward. And then for me, I think the biggest advice is do your research on your clinic. If that clinic also does all the recruitment of their donors, which mine did, that's an added bonus, because then you're not going through national databases, which can be difficult. In Australia, certainly, there's a bit of a shortage. Ask so many questions, because there's a lot of different routes that you can take when it comes to the donor. You can do overseas donors, local donors, etc., etc. So ask lots and lots of questions. And then just make sure that you listen to the advice of your clinic and your specialists. They know what they're doing, even when it feels like it's not working. Just keep asking questions. What else can we try, etc. And then the biggest thing for me, and it was something I said to one of my best friends as she was going through the process, make sure that you're getting counseling. Make sure you've got a really good therapist to help you with the process, because no matter what, you're going to need someone to help you filter all of the feelings. And when you're on hormone medication, you are cuckoo. So just having a cuckoo doctor to help you filter some of the crazy out is so, so, so helpful. And then after the fact as well, I've had a therapist since Mia, and I'll continue just to help me with processing anything that comes up. Because, you don't have the partner, right?
Yeah. So with how much information is on this database that you get? Is it like sort of a catalogue of sperm donors, basically? How much information does it give you?
So the first kind of, I guess, form that you got, which I actually shared with my friend Sarah and was like, help me pick. So she helped me pick, I don't know, but which is a very strange text conversation. The first form, it was just information about their heritage, height, eye color, hair color. I think that was it, really. I think that was it. And then once you kind of select 2 or 3, then you get quite a lot of information. My clinic recruited them all, so this is going to be different for everywhere, but it was their family medical history, their medical history, whether they had any instances of genetic issues in their family, and a few other bits like that. And then my donor, the donor I chose, actually had written, and they get the option to write a letter to explain why they're doing what they're doing. And he had written a letter, and he was explaining that his sister was gay and married, and they had 2 children via a donor, and he wanted to pay it forward, basically, because he loved his nieces, and he wanted to let another family have that opportunity. So I thought, well, that's nice. He seemed like a nice person. So yeah, that's about it. That's about as much as you get, really.
Do they get to know when someone's picked them?
Yes, yeah, they get notified.
They don't get any information about you, obviously, at all, do they?
No, they don't get any. He probably got a little bit more information because I actually carry the cystic fibrosis gene. And so I had to pay and request if he would take that test, because it's not a standard test. Because if 2 people have the gene, obviously your child's likely to have cystic fibrosis, and my cousin actually does. So he probably knows a little bit more about me, I guess, than most, because he very kindly agreed to do that test. But yeah, no, I don't think they get any information. They just get told that we were his 5th family, so he's now basically done.
So just last couple of questions. What's been like and I'm sure there's been loads, but what's been like the best bit, like a moment where you've just gone, I'm so glad to do this?
So many, every day. Like, there's moments where she'll like hold my head and look at me and give me a big smile and then run off. There's moments where I think when I go and pick her up from daycare every single day, it's like the best moment of the day when she turns around and looks at you and there's just this massive, massive smile and she's so happy to see you. And then just all the moments where she'll do something that she hadn't done before and you're like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, just watching a little person grow and develop and become this little light in your life and in other people's lives. I just wouldn't change it for the world. And we travel a lot. She's a very well-traveled kid. Just watching her in awe of like stuff you take for granted, like the plane. In my head, it's a necessary evil to get to where I want to go. To Mia, it's like the greatest adventure on earth. Like, look at this thing. Like, look how you can run down the middle of the plane, man. Like, and they give you treats every time you go past. And, that sense of wonder that kids bring you, especially when you're old and jaded, it's nice to be reminded that the world is still quite a joyous place.
So my last question, and when I say this, I don't obviously, 'cause it's would you do it again? But I don't mean it in terms of would you do that again? Would you do and have two? Has that ever crossed your mind?
It hasn't. I actually have 4 more embryos in the fridge. But unfortunately, again, it goes back to biology. I think there's a few things. One is I'm not sure I can. I'm definitely in perimenopause. So there's that. The other part is there's a mental load with a child that is extraordinary. Now, I wouldn't change it for the world, but with Mia having difficulties, with her having some unique needs, I think that's probably put the kibosh on it because she's going to need a lot more attention and focus than a quote unquote typical kid. And so I think for me to be the sole breadwinner, to also focus on her and her needs, to add another baby would be quite difficult. And I don't know if it might break me. I think where we're at right now is I'm in a place of good balance. But 2 was always the plan. It was always the plan until Mia's diagnoses. And then it was like, let me think about this more. It's whether or not it's the right thing to do for Mia and me as well, because it's a lot. It's a lot. And I'd say to anyone who's having a baby, it's the best thing in the world. And it is the most terrifying, tough, difficult, like, load that you'll ever carry.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been extraordinary listening, actually, because I think it's a very brave thing to do. I don't know if a single man would be able to do it. I'm not sure. I'm always in awe of women that do this. So thank you for joining us and coming on and sharing your story. And hopefully it will help other people in making decisions and just being better informed.
Yeah. And I'm going to put a plug in. We have a little marketing. We have a book club. It's called Part 2 Book Club. And if you mosey over there and drop any questions in, I'll pick them up and answer them. So, or equally, Elliot you can sling on any questions for me as well. So yeah, I'm always really, really happy to share my experiences with anyone.
And equally, if there's any butlers out there that are looking for employment in Brisbane, in Australia, then let us know. Well, guys, listen, thank you again for joining us for Chaz and Gray. Make sure you subscribe and follow, and we'll catch up with you soon. Take care. Bye bye.